Okay,
Hello.
hit me up.
We're there.
Yeah, finally.
I just while you were gone, I was looking at all the tools and all the bits and bobs you've got neatly lined up behind you, and I'm so jealous.
Well, I've got my new. I'm going to do a little tour video type thing in here because it's actually pretty organised now. Got most things going on in here that I want.
Looks so good. I like it. It's such a cool setup, and I mean, I've been there once, and it's and it's just like the dream workshop. Oh,
this is all a bit nicer now, having this set up down here.
Oh my god!
This one's the best drawer, one with all the sockets and stuff. And I've also got this cutaway motor.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, and I've got well, I'll give you a little tour. Got my G Atherton Red Bull hat up here. Got the Mondraker Dune package actually, which is quite sick. It's got some sand from the Mazuga Desert in there. Bit of an obsession with cars at the moment. This one especially, that tells a very cool story that you're going to find out about soon.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
So, we have the new Mondraker Dune Carbon.
Yeah.
And the original Dune was an acoustic bike, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. It came out in 2009, and it was actually probably quite a special bike for Mondraker as a brand. It was before my time, but I do remember the bike quite well. So a couple of important things with it. So the first one, it didn't have full geometry to start with. That came a bit later. But it was the first bike that we launched that had the Zero suspension platform on. Now, prior to that, everything we'd made had different variations of 4-bar designs that were already out there. We just tweaked them to get what we wanted out of them. But essentially, Miguel, what he wanted from the company was to have a suspension platform that ran through all of the bikes. And that was the very first model to feature it. And it was also a hydroformed, well, the front triangle was hydroformed aluminium, which I'm not sure if you remember, but in that era, it was, I guess you'd say it was quite in vogue. Everyone was using it. And because of what you could do with it, you could put pivot points and incorporate them into the actual frame design, much like you would see with carbon, rather than what we were having at the time, which was welded on tabs and things like that. So you can make the frames look all swoopy and look really cool. And it was actually the shape of the top tube that gave the name of the bike, because the designers thought it looked a bit like sand dunes, and they were seeing a lot of sand dunes and things like that in sort of free ride edits at the time, because a lot of those riders were going to deserts and quarries and places like that that had bizarre landscapes to make their riding edits.
Love it.
Well, there you go.
I mean, for 15 years ago, that bike was first released, and like that way of designing a frame, of building a frame, has continued all the way through up until present day, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the coolest thing that I now know about the company, I mean, I had an inkling about this with the fact that they did full geometry in the first place, but they literally designed the bikes that they want to ride. They do that first and foremost, and then they look at the bigger picture and how this is going to fit in with other projects and, you know, what's being sold around the world. But with that Dune, the purpose of that original bike was supposed to be fun. It wasn't built as a race bike or anything like that. It was designed to be efficient in terms of being able to, sorry, that was me dishwasher. It was designed to be efficient in terms of getting you to the top of a hill. It wasn't supposed to be a climbing machine, just to literally get you there as a vessel in order to enjoy the descent. And it's kind of not too far from what the modern day Dune, the one that you're looking at now, is intended for.
You talk about designing bikes that we all want to ride, and I must admit, what I've seen here, it ticks almost every box that I'm looking for. So let's not beat about the bush. So this is the press release, and firstly, what a shot! I mean, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, we're super lucky. I mean, I'm especially lucky to be able to work with that photographer. His name's Ivan, and we've got a videographer called Avi. And both of them were on that trip. And the trip itself was just, I'm still buzzing about it, because I'd had to just forget about the content we shot. So we did this in January. Obviously, because it's embargoed, so I've not been able to sort of do anything with this stuff. And literally, last couple of nights, I've been looking back through it and just realised what an incredible experience it was, getting to ride different areas and just terrain like that you just think, hey, you can't ride that on a bike. Well, it turns out you can.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, fair play. So yeah, something special in its class. Let's just talk about the new bike and the sort of spec, what we've got. So this is a Bosch SX motor, which is great to see. I mean, I'm pleased to see that they're going with Bosch on this one.
Yeah, I think it's quite a different bike, given what the motor is as well. So without talking about the spec of the bike, let's look at what the motor can do on there. So as you know well, it's got the Power More range extender that you can use to actually get more from the bike, should you want. But you've got an integrated battery into the frame, and it's obviously a lighter system. I think it's 4.1 kilos, the whole system weight with the motor and the battery in there. And obviously it's light on power as well. But the whole intention of the bike is to enable of using this motor system is to enable the bike to be the most fun possible. Like, fun is the most important thing in this bike. So there's other features on the bike that hint at the intention of what this is designed for. And I think if you look on the market at other manufacturers that have used this motor system, no one's really done a bike like this. We've built the bike that we want to ride, because of the fact that we have the ability to have an even lighter system with TQ or a full powered system with either Bosch or Shimano. We've chosen to use the SX system here because of the fact it still retains some of the natural feeling that you can get from the TQ system, but it's got much more grunt on there. And I'm not sure if you've ridden it yet or not, but it's so close really in the feel of what you can achieve on the full power bikes, except the bike is just so much lighter, and not just in that physical weight that you're picking it up, in the way that it handles on the terrain. It's just so much fun to play with. Basically, this is a bike to go out and just have a wicked time on.
Well, power to weight ratio is something that we all are used to talking about when it comes to cars. Yeah. And I think we definitely need to start talking about that more when it comes to e-bike power. And people are too focused on sort of Newton meters and outright wattage, but I think we need to find a new measurement which takes into account that weight of the bike as well.
Yeah, I mean, so all three models are under 20 kilos. So you've got to take this with a pinch of salt, because these will be bikes that we weighed them as a size medium with no pedals and set up tubeless. But even setting them up tubeless is going to differ with how much, I don't know, how much tubeless sealant you're going to put in there. So, but the intention was to make sub 20 kilos. And the base model, the Dune R, is literally just under, I think it's 19.9. So okay, the aim was to get it under 20 kilos. So that was the important thing. Because that really then separates it from the bikes that are like 23, 24 kilos, which, although it doesn't sound much on a bit of paper, it's huge when you actually ride the things. And I'm well aware that there are some bikes on the market at the moment using 625 watt-hour batteries and full power motors, and trying to suggest that they ride like lighter bikes, but they are very different in what their intention is and how you can ride them. This bike genuinely does feel very close to what an enduro bike feels like. But actually, I'd say probably more fun, and it's more capable with just the feel of the frame and what you can do on there. I don't know where you want to go from here. Like, I've got so much information on this bike, and I've talked about it so many times now, I almost get a bit lost in.
Well, in terms of the build, like, we've got Olin suspension and Fox on the base model, 170 to 180 travel out front, 165 travel at the rear, and we've got a coil as well on the XR version. I think, like, the main thing for me really is just to focus on the whole lightweight, long travel proposition that we're getting, because not enough brands have been going down that route. They've been kind of safe. I think brands have been afraid of creeping over that 20 kilo figure. And obviously to build a bike that is this capable with this amount of suspension, you do end up pushing that weight up. So how has Mondraker gone about keeping it under 20 kilos, but still offering everything that's in this package?
Well, really, the key is that motor system in there. So as I said to you, is like what 4.1 kilograms, give or take, with a 55 newton meters of torque on there, and it will kick out 600 watt peak power if you're willing to spin. So something here that's important to say is we're not going to talk about TQ here. We just talk about the Bosch systems. So on a Performance CX motor, you can get the 600 watt peak power at about 70 RPM. If you do roughly the same RPM on the SX system, you'll get about 400 watts out of it. You need to be doing 90 to 100 RPM, which is very fast to get the 600 watts. But here's the cool thing about it. This bike, I think, is kind of unique in the fact, and it will be the same with others that use this motor, but the intention of our bike is different. It's kind of unique in the fact that you can ride with people on lighter weight e-bikes, but also bridge over to full power e-bikes if you're willing to just push a little bit harder. And not a lot either. You know, just you get a slightly more natural input into the way that you ride. So if you're going to ride, say, a Performance CX equipped full fat bike, and you're running it in an EMTB or turbo up a hill, you know what you're going to get from this. Whereas on the SX, to keep up with them, you've just got to push a little bit harder, but it feels really natural in the way that you'll give your input over the motor, if that makes sense. So from what I look for in a bike, I always talk about a responsive feel on the trail, feeling the trail, being able to massage the ground and stuff. I really love this feel. You know, I'm a big fan of the TQ equipped bikes because of the fact they're very light and feel very close to normal bikes. And this, to me, is closer to what I look for in a full power bike. And it's actually probably a bike that might make me get rid of crafties. I've got a couple of crafties here that I use, and actually, after riding the Dune, I did think to start with, oh, you know, this bike, I know who it's for. I think I'm a TQ person, and then I have a full fat for all day stuff. But I'm starting to think that maybe this, and if I really needed to, go for a range extender on there. But the cool thing about this is, even at my weight, so I'm give or take 92 kilos, I can get 1,500 meters of climbing at the 400 watt hour battery built in. So that's pretty good to be fair. And if you're lighter and you're fitter, of which most people are than me, you're going to get more than that out of it. But it requires you to put more in. If you want the bike to pull you along, get full power. If you want a bike to basically get up the climbs as quick as possible to absolutely smash it back down again, then something like this is going to be what you're looking at.
And that 250 watt hour power more range extender, it's only 1.5 kilos of extra weight.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
It's not bad, is it?
I mean, I've not ridden with one of those yet. We've only had a limited amount of them when we did the product launch and things like that. So we chose for everyone to ride on the existing 400 watt hour, so you could just understand how you need to manage the battery and stuff. And they're using the eco and the different settings. And something else about it, in fact, with the way that the motor works, it's like a two-step style system rather than a three. So the motor itself has a little less friction when you sort of go over the limiter than you would get on the full power motors, despite the fact, if you look at it, it looks fairly similar to look at. The motor is actually quite different internally. There's a lot of literature from Bosch about this out there. We actually had someone on the launch talking about this specifically because of the fact that when you pedal this up to speed on, say, a downhill trail that goes a little bit flatter, you know the feeling on a full power bike when you're just fighting over that limiter. You know, unless you've got gravity on your side, it can feel pretty hard work. You don't really get that on the SX motor system. So that's another reason that we chose to use that on this.
Talking of frame design as well, it's good to see that we've got the option to run that range extender, but then also there's a Fidlock mount on that top tube as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes perfect sense that if you want to go on a big ride, therefore ride with the range extender, you're going to need to carry water as well. So, I mean, just to see that on the frame for me is another really important addition.
Yeah, I mean, this came straight over from the same exact concept. In fact, the whole frame silhouette was born from the fact that we wanted to build a lightweight style bike because we needed to take into account using a range extender in the first place. So that's really how we got to redesigning the Zero suspension platform on there, moving it lower down in the frame, but still allowing the room in the front triangle. Whereas, of course, if you look at the existing Crafties and Foxies and stuff, if you imagine trying to fit 2 water bottles in the same sort of configuration, it's just not really possible. So, you know, when you think you get somewhere that's amazing, you've done everything you could possibly do, another bit of technology arrives and you suddenly have to figure out, hold on a second, that's really good, but it won't work with the way that we want to use it. So, you know, that's the way the designers are always thinking 5 steps ahead. It's not just to make something different so there's a USP about it. It's actually to try and make things better.
Talking of design, look at that silhouette. That side-on view is just like, it's almost perfect in terms of frame design. And the fact that there's literally just one cable that I can see in that shot, which is the front brake cable, it's pretty impressive these days. I mean, obviously helped by the electronic dropper post and the new SRAM gears. But still, I mean, it's a really, really impressive design, isn't it?
Beautiful bike. Yeah, I mean, if you squint, it's pretty close to the Neat. But when you look at them side by side, the Neat is a much more slender looking bike. You can see visually that it's lighter. The top tube is thinner, it's narrower, there's less material on the frame. Of course, the Neat has a 29-inch rear wheel. It's full-time 29. The Dune is not. The Dune is designed around a 27.5. Now, when they were actually designing the bike in the first place, they did have like a prototype mule, that adjustable chainstay lengths, bottom bracket height, shock positions, like everything was adjustable on this. And they did try 29s, but actually for every purpose and every situation that they looked at, 27.5 just worked on this. And I think they fighted that internally as well because of the fact that the brand firmly believes in 29-inch wheels. And the only bike to break that mold for us really is the semi downhill bike, which you can set up either way or spec it out like the MX style or 29. And this is the first bike outside of that to have it. But I think everyone, once you've ridden it on all terrain, even the really sort of rough, chundery stuff, you're like, actually, the suspension works really good on it. It's not a problem. Being a taller rider, the thing I notice about the small, well, 2 things I particularly notice on the smaller thing is tipping a bike into like really hard turns is just noticeably easier for me. But other than that, you don't really notice the characteristics in the wheel, I think. But something really cool that I like is it's enabled me to go sort of a bit backwards in the way that I used to like riding, which is, you know, I used to ride BMX tracks and stuff growing up as a kid all the time. I love manualing and pushing into things. And with 29s, you do, because of the rolling power of the wheels, you do tend to just chuck on straight through with this stuff. But riding this again, it's just bringing that more playful side out to what I like riding. So it's another thing that's confusing me a bit with like, you know, choices. I mean, third world problems here. You know, having a choice is a great thing. I'm still a neat person, I think, from a daily driver. But I'm 100% going to get a Dune for sure.
So that was one of the questions on my list was, does this bike step on the toes of the Neat? And you're saying no.
I don't think so, no. I think it's a completely different intention. The Neat was designed, like the initial design brief was to build the lightest possible light assist e-bike. So light in every sense. You hear like lightweight e-bikes and it can be confusing because they're not always light in power or light in weight. That's what the remit was for that bike. And the whole point of it is to feel as natural as possible, narrowest Q factor possible, a motor system that you genuinely don't notice when you go over the assistance. And that's exactly what it does. So the Neat, I still think, is the bike that, well, it appeals to probably the most amount of people in the sense that someone who rides a full power bike that wants a lighter feeling bike that feels more like a real bike. A real bike? You know what I mean by that. A non-e-bike, a muscular bike, acoustic bike, whatever you want to call them. But they don't really want to go back to a muscular style bike. And also, it's a style bike that if someone's coming from the muscular bikes, maybe someone of my era that's a bit more stubborn and doesn't want to commit to a full power e-bike, that's the sort of bike that's going to appeal to them. I think it stands alone still. This is an all-new thing. This one is built for fun. This isn't built for the person that wants the bike to pull them up the climb all day long and, you know, just go on a full power. That's not what it's at. This bike is like a shuttle bike. It's a downhill beast. It's big. It's aggressive. It's slack. You know, 63.5 head angle on that XR model. The geometry is perfect and they haven't gone too far. Everything has been designed with balance. That is, I think, probably the most important word with the way that we develop our geometry, because you get bikes out there that might have longer chainstays or might have slacker head angles, but everything that we consider on the bikes is designed around the end user for the particular model. And it's something I've really learned from, in particular, Israel that I work with. This particular bike, the chainstay length, everything on it has been, they've worked backwards and forwards on this, even with different tyre sizes, everything you can imagine in the testing phase. And this is what they've ended up at. And I think it's a formidable bike.
The statement here from the press pack, the natural evolution of enduro, do bikes like this really pose a big threat to the future of acoustic mountain bikes? Because I'm starting to, other than the price, I'm starting to struggle to find a reason why I would now choose to own an acoustic mountain bike.
I don't know, to be honest. I'd need to come back to that one on another day. I'm not really sure. So I actually saw Jonesy the other day, and he was laughing because I'm riding e-bikes a lot of the time. But I'm working for a brand that sells a lot of e-bikes, like a ridiculous amount of e-bikes. And I'm still riding normal bikes. The Raise is still my favourite bike, a 130, 150 natural bike. My one weighs 29 pounds. It's like a cross-country bike on steroids. I love it. I will always love that style bike. But you know me, I love my tech. I love the latest thing always. I'm always, there's some bits and pieces I can't show you that I'm riding that you're going to see from other brands popping up, components and things, that is. But, I'm always want to ride the next thing. So in this case, it's always going to be having to ride every different motor system out there and every different suspension fork and everything possible. And of course, e-bikes are a great vessel for that. I love them. And I do think they will be in danger of it, but regular mountain bikes will always be here. Always. They're not going anywhere. Come on, look at vinyl. Like it's a bad example, but I'm going to use it. It's better than using, CDs and DVDs, that's sale, isn't it? But vinyl is very much a user experience type thing. And I think regular mountain bikes will always be there. Just the fact that, you're always going to have normal road bikes and gravel bikes and touring bikes and BMX bikes. Why would you just get rid of them because e-technology is here? They're here to stay.
Yeah, so here's another one. This display, that's removable, isn't it?
Yep.
Good to know. I'm trying to just get ahead of the comment section because I know what people are going to say, and that's another polarizing thing. Yeah. For me, I like to see less screens and, to be honest, to have the option to remove it. Because I've just found out quite recently, just from riding over in America, the views that people have over there on bikes, and e-bikes in particular, are so different to some of the views that we have over here. So to give people that option is another great thing. So yeah.
This is something, some of the testers are back at base running without displays anyway, because they're chopping and changing stuff, and it's just one additional thing that makes the testing process difficult. But also, you don't need the display. So this is something that's great that Bosch offer, is the fact that you can set it up as you want. So, that's the same with all of the Bosch Smart system. It enables you to do these things yourself. But by offering a display on there, you've got the most amount of options available to you. And you can take it off. And it's definitely on a bike like that. Personally, I would remove it. I will always keep a display on a bike that I'm doing more miles on. But a bike that I just want to throw around, have fun on, I'm quite happy to remove that, to have a cleaner cockpit, remove the distractions from there. But hey, it's choice, like you said.
Yeah. And another one, which I know comment section people are going to pick up on, headset cable routing. However, we've only got the rear brake running through there now, and it's just that cable from the display as well. Tell me about the decision to go down that route.
Well, I think the truth is the decision was made so long ago to do that's why we've got it. I don't see it as a major concern. There will be bikes coming out in the future that move away from that. But this one has got that on there. And like you said, you can't deny it. It looks amazing. If you maintain your bike, it's fine. But haters are going to hate, whatever. But something that does make me laugh about all this online hate about this stuff, now I'm on this side of the fence and I see how manufacturing works, is the decision to not use this stuff was made a long time before people even started bitching about it online. So all you people on the forums to probably just consider how manufacturing works a little bit more. The lead times are huge in certain things. When you're buying things like headsets or even just bearings, the amount that you have to get and the quantities you need to get them to the factories when the factories need them to meet those deadlines, it's crazy. And then you consider, you know, we're not a large manufacturer. If you're a huge manufacturer, it's going to be even further ahead. You know, there's so many things to do in the manufacturing world that really do affect things. But hey, it's just a headset.
Another thing, talking of frame design, was just how low they've managed to get the shock in the frame. I mean, keeping the weight low in a bike is one of the reasons why I believe that e-bikes, especially lightweight e-bikes, will probably ride better downhill than your average trail bike. Me now, when I get back on my regular trail bike, I feel like the whole thing feels skittish because I feel so top heavy. Now with this bike, with the weight sitting so low in the frame, that's can only be a good thing, surely.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't designed just to get the weight down. It was designed, pushing that rocker on the seat tube as low as possible was designed to give the room to mount the bottle by the top tube to enable the range extender one to sit on the down tube with the access, if you can see that in other shots there. So it's ended up in that position. But, you know, our shocks have always been fairly low, but that's extremely low on there. So, yeah, it helps for sure. You know, lowering your center of gravity on a bike, but let's also not forget, like, you know, some people are going to get a bit carried away with this. The biggest bit of weight on a bike is you still, you know, so you make the biggest difference. So yes, it will help, but it's not going to be the end of the world if it's not like that.
In terms of comparisons, the only other bike I can really look at is the Specialized Kenevo SL. That's a bike that I properly fell for this winter, and it's, I mean, when you compare it to the Dune, Dune's got a more powerful motor. It's now got a bigger battery, option for coil shock straight out of the box, and you can run the water bottle in the frame as well as the range extender at the same time. So you're doing well on the tick sheet.
Well, I think it looks better as well, but then I'm going to say that. So I'd say that if I worked for him or not, to be honest. Because it does look sick.
To be honest, I agree. And also looking at some of the paint jobs, I don't know how they do this.
Yeah, so that particular one on the XR, the paint was chosen because it goes with the name and stuff. And all the locations we went to for filming, the colour tones in the rock turned from like sandy colours to almost bold red in some of the locations. And then when we went to the Sahara Desert or the Mazuga Desert, it was almost like overly saturated yellow. I didn't expect the sand to be that colour. But however you position the bike, you'll see, actually, I'm posting a reel at some point today, and you'll see just an iPhone shot on there. I walk around the bike, and you can literally see it changing colour and the background's changing as well. It's pretty cool. Like, it looks so cool in the flesh when you see it. But I've got to say, my favourite one is actually the RR model. I've got my eye on one of those. Like, even though this is like it's stunning, it really is. But I like a bit of subtlety sometimes myself, and I quite like the RR model, but hey, beggars can't be choosers.
It's a bit bling, this one, that's for sure. I think we've covered a lot of bases. No doubt you've got an awful lot more to talk about on this bike in terms of design and getting down to the technical details of it. The one thing I was just going to pick up on as well was just the spec that's been chosen for this and the component spec. Have we got like carbon bars and things like that on this bike?
They've all got carbon bars on there. They've all got 30mm stems. Yeah, they've all got dropper post with the drop that changes per size of bike. You know, they've all got the maximum respective that you can fit in there. And in fact, the R and the RR model have got adjustable drop posts, the smallest of which on a size small do 95 to 120 millimeters. And up to the bigger size goes up to 200 mil. With the reverb access post, obviously they don't actually make a 200 mil drop post. So I think the biggest is 170 on there. But again, they change per size. And as you can probably see, the spec on our bikes is chosen by what Salva thinks is the right thing to go on the bike, not by what the best component package is that might be offered by that manufacturer. So you can be very easy to offer a bike that might be marginally better for value if you picked everything Shimano and used Fox suspension maybe, or everything SRAM and RockShox. But the components that are picked on the bike are picked for a reason. There's 200mm rotors, 4 pots on all the bikes. So on the R model, you've got the Fox 36 on the front, and you've got the Flotex on the rear. On the RR model, you've got the Fox RXF 38 with 170 on the front and a TTX Air on the rear. TTX coil with the same RXF 38 but running 180 on the XR model. So the Öhlins combination with SRAM gearing on there, rather than picking RockShox or rather than picking Fox on those, they found that in testing it just perfectly complemented the bikes and what they could achieve. So, everything has been really, worked really closely with Öhlins. Even the tune on the suspension is actually going to be different to what you can get commercially at the moment. I'm not sure if that's going to change from Öhlins, but the tunes that we've got on them is just phenomenal. Essentially, I've found them sat more in the middle of the damping range. You've got more usable damping, whereas I found on some bikes of Öhlins stuff in the past, tend to run them a little less in terms of damping and less in terms of rebound to try and get them to feel a bit quicker. So it's got slightly lighter tunes there. But our frames, in case people don't know, have always been very efficient in terms of what they offer. And we've typically always only needed a light tune in terms of damping, just because of the way that Zero platform works.
Well, I've learned an awful lot about suspension in the last few weeks, and I know that a lighter damping setup is something that a lot of the suspension manufacturers are trying to go for now. Basically, just a wider tuning range. It seems like a lot of suspension has just been optimized for that more performance end and for somebody who rides much harder. So quite often that high-speed compression is just something that the average rider doesn't even bother with, just it leaves it wide open. So
yeah, which you're missing out on a range of adjustment there.
Exactly. So it's good to see that this bike basically comes with that new kind of philosophy when it comes to suspension tuning.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's always been there with our stuff, but I think we've always worked really closely with manufacturers on stuff, in particular with Fox and Öhlins of late, but I don't think we've ever worked as closely as we have in the last year. So Israel's been riding various different prototype test mules, as have the others back at base. And every time I've been over, I've been there, 6 months now, and I've been at least once a month since I've been. And every time I've been over there, they've been testing with different tunes, different configurations, even twin crowns, all sorts of different options and stuff. And I've seen the guys from Öhlins over there working on the suspension quite a lot. And I've not had access to what they've been doing, but this is what it's ended up as. And I think everyone's really, really pleased with it.
Well, I'm so pleased to see more brands coming out with long travel, lightweight EMTBs. For me, it's a sweet spot. I'm only 70-something, 71 kilos, something like that. And I still enjoy to get a bit of a workout on my ride, but I am quite time poor. And so being able to get out and just push and get a big ride out in a shorter amount of time is good for me. And so to be able to do that on something which is also capable enough to take on the sort of trails that I ride, the terrain that I ride, it's great to see this coming from Mondraker. I hope more brands do it, which just keeps pushing this segment forwards.
Yeah, I now I've ridden and spent quite a bit of time on this SX system. I'm really starting to not just believe, but really to feel invested in sort of the mid power. I hate to give it a name, but I think you know what I mean, because you've got the TQ is undeniably lightweight, light in power and physically lightweight. This is designed to feel punchy and aggressive and supportive, and it will tow you if you let it. You're just going to drain the battery quicker, but it can do those things. But something that's really important to try and get across is the mindset of people that are buying e-bikes in the first place. So the lightweight stuff we know, but a lot of people are buying full power bikes because of it's better to have too much just in case. Oh, you may as well have a long travel bike because you've got a big motor. Oh, you may as well have a bigger battery because you can just ride up more hills. But it's like a lot of people, not all by any means, a lot of people will only be riding for between 2 and 4 hours. And a lot of those people that have full power bikes, you'll be returning home with like 60% battery. So if that's the case, if you're one of those people that do that, you're lugging around loads of extra weight for no reason. Those full power bikes, all of them, they're brilliant. They're brilliant bits of kit. If they're the right bike for you, happy as Larry, stay that way. But if you're a rider that's not using all that, why would you bother? it would be like driving an empty van the whole time. You may as well just get yourself in a state car or something else. It's just a waste. You're missing out on a better experience, on something that's going to be more enjoyable to ride. And I think, you know, that's really what people are going to need to start thinking about when you're buying e-bikes now, because it's not just a case of, oh, I want a 900 watt hour battery and I want this and that. So really, is that what you want? Just, I think people should just consider, really. So options, yeah, there's going to be loads of options moving forwards. But that's definitely what I'm looking at for sure.
Yeah, I think battery size, things seem to have swung a little bit too far in that direction. And I get it. Like if you're a heavier rider, or if you do those big rides, I see why you might want a 900 watt hour battery. But for most people and most rides, it is overkill. You've just, it's, you know what, people are talking about electric cars and range anxiety and that kind of thing. And it's like, you know, just, you learn to live with whatever you've got. If you've only got a 600 watt hour battery in your bike, then, you know, you ride in trail mode a bit more often. There's always a way to adjust your ride for that. And then you've probably got a bike that's lighter and therefore rides better the majority of the time.
100%. It's like life is about compromises. You know, you can't have one thing that will do everything, because it will end up being the thing that does many things not very well. You know, you've got to pick the biggest things that stand out to you. You know, what's more important? You know, should the bike be slightly lighter? Should it be more fun to ride? Do you want to jump the bike? Do you want all those things? In which case, a lot of the time, a full power bike might not be the one. Whereas if you're a proper all-day rider that wants to ride, you know, as many peaks as possible, then yeah, you probably want to go for a full power bike. But I just don't think that's realistic for a lot of people. Obviously, geographically, it depends on where you live. Everyone I know that rides e-bikes could definitely do with going for a slightly lighter option than what they're riding. You know, they're getting full power because they can. I get that. You know, I've got one because of that same exact mentality, but I'm now questioning whether I should just not bother having it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I felt that same way this winter. I've been riding SLs, and I've got a full fat bike in the shed, and I've been picking up the SL as my kind of go-to bike more recently. So yeah, that says something. And I didn't think I would go that way, because back in the day I was a through and through full fat rider, and so yeah, my mindset's changing. And I think with these big hitting lightweight bikes, I think it's definitely going to push me in that direction.
Yeah, I just want to be clear though, I do genuinely love all bikes. Even road bikes, I don't ride them, but I love and appreciate all bikes. So I don't want anyone to think like I'm trying to push a new bike. It's like, it's not. I just love bikes and sharing knowledge about bikes.
Unicycles? How about that?
It's not a bike.
Oh, it's not
a bicycle, is it?
Bicycle.
Yeah.
Tricycle. No, we'll have to exclude those.
I can ride a unicycle. When I used to work in bike shops, obviously there'd be times where you just get bored and you mess around with what's in the shop. So I used to mess around with unicycle because it was there.
Oh, there you go. We will add that to the list. All right, final question. When can we get our hands on these Dune bikes?
As far as I know, they should be in dealers now. The dealers that have ordered them, that is, anyway. That'll be dependent on who's ordered, what countries, which territories, all that stuff. But the dealers and so all the sales teams actually had their presentations before the media this time around. So we've done things a bit differently. So they already knew about the bikes. They've already got their orders. They're already sorted. So as far as I know, they should be out there.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on one, and I definitely would like to spend some time on one. So we need a longer conversation over that. But
I'm sure we can arrange that.
And thanks, Doddy. We will catch up again very soon, hopefully. And yeah, thanks very much for this conversation.
Take care. See you soon.